Hey, I'm Brad from CoachParry.com. We're going to be talking all about tight calves today. It's one of the things that most runners will experience at some stage in their running career, and I'm joined by our coach, Lindsay Parry, to talk a little bit about what you can do to avoid getting tight calves, what you can do to treat tight calves, and everything else you need to know about tight calves. If you want to find out more about what we do over at CoachParry.com, where we can help you become fitter, faster, and stronger, the website to get to, CoachParry.com. We're talking about tight calves on today's video. Lindsay, it's something that I think a lot of runners get. It's uncomfortable, and we're going to delve a little bit deeper today. What's the cause of tight calves as a runner?
Look, there's probably a lot of causes for tight calves, but I think one of the reasons for it being a little bit more prevalent now and a lot of people noticing it more is that shoes have moved away from that sort of traditional 12 mil drop to the kind of most shoes in the general population range are sitting in the 10 mils and less. And obviously there's this move to more natural running. That's slowed down quite a lot, thank goodness, but it's still there. And so you do get loads of shoes that are in the 4 to 8 millimeter range, and that really what it does is it forces you more onto your front foot, and if it doesn't force you more into your front foot, you're still going to heel strike, but because of the way your foot now lands, it is pushing more stress into, in particular, your soleus, which is the smaller of your two calf muscles, and the Achilles. And so that is one of the reasons for tight calves. Of course, if you have any weakness in your kinetic chain, and most people have a weakness in their glutes in particular because we sit so much. So when you're sitting, and particularly when you're sitting with poor posture, your glutes switch off, they become deactivated. And if you're spending loads of time sitting like that, then over time your glutes actually just stop firing and working and doing their job properly. So that's normally the guilty party, is also the glutes not quite doing their job. Of course, if your quads aren't quite strong enough and not doing their shock absorption job as they should, that stress just keeps getting passed down. And so probably a combination of those two factors of your shoes causing a little bit more stress into the calves, as well as these other muscles that aren't quite doing the job they're supposed to be doing, and your calves find themselves under siege, and so they tend to go not quite into a spasm. That would be overstating a little bit, but they do tighten up a little.
How do you treat tight calves?
Look, I've always told people to roll, but I've read a couple of studies in the last 6 months that show that rolling doesn't really make a difference, which is it's counterintuitive to me, because that's the research is showing. However, when I have tight calves and I roll, it definitely feels better. So if you do have tight calves as part of your warm-up routine, I would still suggest some rolling. I certainly, if I take myself as a subject of one, feel that really does provide me with relief if I have got tight and sore calves. And then a very gentle stretch, and definitely post-exercise to do some gentle calf stretching, both with a bent and a straight knee, because we've got two calf muscles. We've got the gastrocs and we've got the soleus muscles. And the soleus you can only really stretch with the bent knee, and that's the one that typically is normally the tighter of the two. And then the straight knee for the gastrocs too. And then very effective is massage. So if you can afford to give yourself a massage every week is great, but yeah, certainly every 2 to 3 weeks. But definitely if you are experiencing extremely tight calves, then it's a great idea to go in and get a sports massage.
Is there anything you can do to prevent it? I mean, you've mentioned the shoes and the drop in that. Strength training, would that help?
Yeah, so certainly. So again, as I mentioned, the two things there around the shoes, and then also if there are some weaknesses or glutes in particular that aren't firing. So absolutely strength training. I I don't normally advocate strengthening the calf specifically unless there is an issue. So if you keep injuring, so if we're moving from tight to actually injuring, in particular the soleus and or the Achilles, then I would do some specific calf strengthening exercises. But as a rule, most of the strength exercises we do, if you're doing step-ups onto a bench, you're going to be using your calves. If you're doing lunges, you're going to be using your calves. So a lot of the strengthening exercises incorporate some calf strengthening anyway. But definitely getting into a gym, making sure glutes are firing, doing glute, quad, hamstring strengthening exercises is going to help to reduce the pressure going through the calves. If you're someone who suffers from debilitating tightness in the calves and it's an ongoing problem, I would consider going to a podiatrist and having a proper insert made that probably raises the heel 2 or 3 millimeters, and that'll take quite a lot of stress off the calves. What's important when you do that, though, is that you do have a regular gentle stretching routine of the calves, because what will happen, particularly if you are someone with those chronic issues, is as soon as you lift up the heel, then that calf is going to shorten. And that actually reminds me of another cause, particularly in females, is females who wear high-heeled shoes a lot often get stress in the calves for this exact reason. Firstly, you're forced into a position where you're always on your toes, but also that calf over time does shorten a little bit, and then when you run, because it's in that shortened position, it gets put under a lot of pressure.
And you talk about the stretching, Lindsay. If it happens during a run or a race where your calves start tightening up, I'm guessing stopping stretching them out will assist with that?
It should, but you need to be careful in that scenario, because if it's happening in an actual run physically where you're feeling those calves tightening up, they may well be going into a protective spasm of some sort. So yes, and again, that stretching must be quite gentle. You want to stretch until you feel that like almost like a slow pulling. It mustn't be too vigorous, and you mustn't push it too far into pain.
Thanks for joining us on this video. Don't forget, if you don't want to miss any of these videos that we put out, hit the subscribe button over here. You can catch our latest video over here, and one of our most popular is over here. And also, if you want to shave 10 minutes off your PB, all you need to do is download our free strength training program. You can get that right here.